Some decades ago, Doctor Who introduced one of its most beloved villains, an antagonist so powerful, so menacing that his single appearance cemented him as one of the greatest foes the Doctor had ever faced. Voiced by Gabriel Woolf, his chilling presence dominated Pyramids of Mars, proving that sometimes sheer malevolence is more terrifying than armies or weapons. His voice alone carried such menace that decades later, when Doctor Who needed a truly terrifying voice for possession, Woolf was brought back to play the eldritch entity that took over Toby's Zed in the impossible planet the Satan Pit. That villain was Sutekh, the last of the Anagrams, a god of death who, despite being physically restrained for much of the story, utterly owned every scene through sheer presence. But of course they just had to ruin him. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Daemon, and today we're looking at how Doctor Who managed to completely balls up one of its most legendary villains. First they butchered the Silurians, then they ruined the Zygons, then they turned Beep the Meep and the Toymaker into jokes. And now they've done the same to Sutekh, arguably the coolest villain in Doctor Who history. If the show had a villain equivalent to Star Trek's Khan Noonien Singh, it was him. Sutekh didn't need to be on screen every moment to command the entire story. His presence alone dictated every action. He was power incarnate. And yet somehow Doctor Who in 2024 found a way to ruin that legacy. I get it. Bringing back a villain who's supposed to be dead is always tricky, but if you're going to do it, at least get it right. Instead, Russell T Davies got it so horribly wrong that I can't even begin to understand what he was thinking. For starters, let's talk about the Anagram Nonsense. Susan technology becoming Sutekh, a portmanteau-like cybernetic organism becoming cyborg. Are you kidding me? That's not clever. It's just lazy. It's not even an anagram. It's as if they came up with a bad twist and retroactively tried to justify it with the weakest explanation possible. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is the way they completely misunderstood where Sutekh was trapped in the first place. In Pyramids of Mars, Sutekh was held in place by a time corridor, not the time vortex. These are not the same thing. Resurrection of the Daleks showed us how time corridors worked, linking 2 points in time, allowing instantaneous travel between them. That's how Sutekh's influence reached Earth in 1911, despite being locked away for millennia. The Doctor defeated him by extending his time corridor forward in time, making him experience an eternity of aging in seconds. That was the point. Now, unless the TARDIS somehow got caught in the exact same time corridor, how the hell was Sutekh sitting on top of the TARDIS for hundreds of years? The time vortex is not a corridor, it's the raw substance of time itself. They're completely different concepts. Pyramids of Mars made it clear. Sutekh was destroyed the moment his corridor was extended. His body disintegrated. He didn't just float away into the void like some lost balloon. But RTD clearly didn't care about any of that. Instead, we get some ridiculous nonsense about Sutekh being trapped on the TARDIS, waiting centuries to break free. Because apparently, the guy who once threatened to burn the entire universe to dust suddenly decided to sit around and twiddle his thumbs instead of instantly seizing power the moment he got loose. This isn't Sutekh the Destroyer. This is Sutekh the time-wasting bureaucrat. There was absolutely no reason to mess with Sutekh's design. The original costume, the mask, and most importantly, Gabriel Woolf's voice were more than enough to cement him as a timeless villain. But no, modern Doctor Who just had to throw CGI at him. And the result? Instead of an eternal, godlike being whose presence alone could shake the cosmos, we got some aged, decrepit mess that looked like it was left unfinished in a cutscene from a mid-2000s PlayStation game. It honestly reminded me of that version of Scrappy Doo in the Scooby-Doo movie. You know, the one where they tried to make him some terrifying final boss, but he just looked ridiculous. That's exactly what happened to Sutekh here. He's supposed to be this unfathomable ancient force of destruction, but instead he looked pathetic. Not in the decayed and horrifying way, but in the laughable and embarrassing way. And let's be real, the original Pyramids of Mars costume was scarier than anything the CGI monstrosity could ever hope to be. The static, unreadable mask, the regal, ominous posture. The way his voice alone carried enough weight to make the Doctor terrified. That's what made Sutekh work. You don't need some over-designed digital monstrosity when you've already got a villain who commands fear through sheer presence. But of course, that's what modern Doctor Who does. It mistakes more for better. Instead of showing restraint and letting the actor and voice work carry the character, they overload everything with CGI, making it look cheap, fake, and completely unintimidating. And Sutekh, of all villains, deserve better than that. What made Sutekh terrifying in Pyramids of Mars was his mind. He didn't need an army, he didn't need to run around chasing people like a Dalek. He simply existed, and his will alone was enough to break people. He could destroy you with a glance, he could make the Doctor beg. He was an ancient godlike being who saw life as worthless, and the scariest part, he meant it. But now, thanks to this botched return, his legacy is in tatters. What should have been a triumphant, chilling reintroduction turned into yet another example of modern Doctor Who fundamentally misunderstanding its own history. And the worst part? This was entirely avoidable. There were so many better ways to bring Sutekh back, if they even needed to in the first place, but no. Instead of honoring Pyramids of Mars, they turned a terrifying god of death into a joke. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where, naturally, I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.